how many of your organizations participate in active shooter or active intruder drills on a regular basis? Okay, we're going to help out with that. We're going to help you develop a plan and how many active shootings or mass shootings, that means 4 or more people have been shot in the United States in 2022. Just throwing that out there. 7? Anybody else? 12? 22? 202. 202 active shootings in the United States from January to April this year. May's numbers are coming in. 221 dead, 790 injured. Wow. Okay, and these are the only documented cases for. It's really a conservative number, because think of all the shootings. How many more shootings there have been where there's been 2 or more, or a single shooter, or a single death, or a single injury. But to be considered a mass shooting, 4 or more people, not including the shooter, had to be shot and either injured or dead. 202, and we're in 4 months in. So that's why we need to train for active shooter. And I think I told you at the beginning of the first session, I've had extensive training in hostage rescue, and all we did was train on active shooter. Because as a SWAT team, the fastest way to save lives is incapacitate the shooter. So that's all we trained for. Now, me being the medic, as we move through the structure, my job was to try to save as many lives as we could as we move through. You know, I'm pulling people out of hallways, putting tourniquets on, dragging people down stairwells, getting them in barricaded places. And while my team is trying to get to the threat, the fastest way to save lives in a school or your building is to incapacitate the shooter in whatever means necessary. So, a few years ago, several years ago, Columbine, in the late 90s, was the first mass school shooting, and that really was very educational for tactical teams. It taught us that we weren't equipped. Tactical units were not equipped well enough for mass shootings in schools and hospitals and nursing homes and things like that. Because 1, there was no medical support. 2, they didn't have the right equipment. So everybody started, Homeland Security started ramping things up and saying, hey, we got to do something. And of course, I made that all sound quick. This took years to unfold, right? As we started seeing more and more active shooters. Or in a few minutes, I'll change to active intruder, and I'll tell you the difference between active shooter and active intruder. But we're going to respond the same way. So today I'm going to teach you how to respond to an active shooter so you can implement it at your facility and make it part of a bigger plan that we're going to tell you about, which is called your EAP, which is your Emergency Action Plan, which is going to include your active shooter, your tornado, and your fire. Okay, all those things that could happen at your facility that puts you at liability, right? You need to have documentation that you're performing these drills. When you house somebody, when you ask the public to come in and stay at your facility, and you charge them a fee, or you need to be on the stand and be able to say, we did everything we could to make sure they were safe. Well, the defense attorney is going to say, well, did you do fire drills? Did you do active shooter drills? Did you do tornado drills? And you want to be able to say yes, and here's all of our documentation, okay? That's going to cut down on your liability. So today we'll focus on active shooter training. Years ago, the first plan, somebody come up with a plan, especially in schools, that if an active intruder entered the building, that all the children were supposed to huddle down and lock the door. The teacher was barricaded the door, and they were all supposed to just huddle in there together, okay? That ended up being a disaster, okay? That we started realizing that was the wrong thing to ask them to do, because they're sitting ducks, right? We had a training video one time to where we had a classroom, and we had balloons tied to all the chairs to represent the students. We had a shooter enter the room, and the shooter just with the students doing nothing but being huddled down, no interaction with the shooter would start picking off balloons and see how many he could take out in and how fast of a time, okay? Well, then when they taught the kids to fight back, they did the same drill, and his accuracy rate was so diminished, he killed like 25% of the students that he would have killed if they didn't fight back. And fighting back, throwing books, throwing chairs, throwing stuff through the window, bailing out the window, and running if they can. So I remember my boys were at Hoover High School when they used to teach that huddle down program, and I told my boys, do not do that. You throw a chair through the window. If you can hear the gunfire on the other end of the hallway, throw a chair through the window, jump from 2 stories or less, and run like your pants are on fire, and get as far away from that school as you can. I just never did buy into the let's just sit here and do nothing. Well, eventually the plan developed into a more active and aggressive, and it's what we know now as run, hide, fight, okay? And that's what you want to teach your staff and your employees and your kids. Let's talk about a profile of an active shooter. So we got the right definition here. So an active shooter is an individual actively engaged in killing or attempting to kill people in a confined or populated area. In most cases, active shooters use firearms, and there's no pattern or method to the selection of the victims. Active shooter situations are unpredictable and evolve quickly. They're typically over in 10 to 15 minutes. The immediate deployment of law enforcement is required to stop the shooter unless you have a concealed carried weapons citizen who is going to be there a lot faster than the police and can stop the threat, which has happened numerous times, okay? And I love that when that happens, because that's citizens saving lives by being armed, right, legally. Because active shooter situations are over within 10 to 15 minutes before law enforcement arrives, individuals must be prepared both mentally and physically to deal with the active shooter. Now, how to respond to an active shooter in your vicinity. Quickly determine the most reasonable way to protect your own life. When an active shooter enters your building, it is every man for himself. Now that doesn't mean that you can't drag your friends with you or help them. You can help them barricade, you can help them escape, but your goal is to live, right? Your goal is to live. And today we're going to teach you how to do that. All right, so the first thing you want to do is evacuate. Run. Run is always your first option. Now let's talk about what's required in order to be able to run. There has to be an accessible path of escape, okay? I go around, I've taught several ministries this, I go and put them through active shooter drills like I do at the Foundry, and the administration of these ministries find out very quickly that they're not as safe in their office as they thought they were, because they realize they got dead-end hallways, they have no escape stairwells, and so they're trapped, and so they're forced to barricade. And barricading is very scary, but it's your only option if you can't run. You should always have an escape route and plan in mind. When you get home today or tomorrow, you need to sit in your office and go, if an active shooter walked through the front door right now with a AK-47 or an AR-15 firing rounds, where am I going? Where am I going? How can I get out of this building? Can I get out a door that he did not come in? I want to go in a direction where I don't have to pass or engage or see the shooter, okay? Evacuate regardless of whether other people decide to go with you. If somebody tells you, hey, I think it'd be better if we just stay right here, have it made up in your mind, have a plan made. No, I'm running. I'm running. Leave your belongings behind. You can get them later. The active shooter is not involved. He's not there to steal your purse, okay? He's not. He is there to take lives, period. So you can go get your pictures and stuff later. Help others escape if possible, especially children and elderly who can't run as fast or can't get over obstacles. You may have to jump over a handrail. You may have to slide down a handrail. You may have to jump down 2 flights of stairs or out a window. Help those that are not capable if you can. Prevent individuals from entering an area where the active shooter may be. These situations are so chaotic, there's no way to even, there's no words to even describe. Even in the high level stress training scenarios we did, it's so chaotic. because there's gunfire, there's explosions, the fire alarm's going off, the sprinkler heads are going off. I mean, it's just chaos. And so some people get disoriented, especially if they're in a building that they don't know very well, like if you're visiting somewhere, like us here today, you know, we know where the main door, we know where we came in, but we don't know all the other routes, right? So you don't know, so some people get confused and run toward the threat. Well, if you're running away from the gunfire and you see people running toward the gunfire, grab them and turn them around and go, no, 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 you're going the wrong way. Come with us, follow us. Keep your hands visible. Why would you have to keep your hands visible? Exactly. We all know how that ends up sometimes, right? Always keep your hands out of your pockets, because as the TAC team or the first arriving, it's going to be the patrol units, the day shift or the night shift that's going to arrive first, because the TAC team's out gathering all their stuff. They're going to get there later. And sometimes it's over by the time SWAT team gets there. Sometimes it's not. But as they're coming in to address the shooter, all these people are running past them. Well, as long as they see you're not a threat. But if you're like this, you know, you're a threat because I can't see your hands. As a tactical officer, or medic, every entry we made, what we screamed constantly was, show me your hands, show me your hands, let me see your hands, I have to see your hands. God, that was said 1,000 times on every drug warrant, okay? Every time we kicked the door in, I gotta see your hands. Follow the instructions of any police officers that you pass. They're getting intel, right, from somebody. It could be a sniper across the street with binoculars. They can see things that you can't. So if they tell you, don't go that way, go this way, just follow their instructions. If you're put down on the ground, just get down on the ground. Just comply, because sometimes everybody gets taken down until we can figure out who the threat is. Okay, everybody is subdued, everybody's handcuffed. Because there have been many, many situations to where the shooter, his entire goal was to go in and kill as many people as he could, and then dress as the people escaping and leave with all the students, right? Or all the adults. So he's gonna throw a hoodie on, he's got in his backpack, he's gonna look different leaving than he did coming in. Okay, so they're looking for a guy in a red shirt with a gun. Well, he's leaving in a black hoodie, you know, with his hands like this, okay? So when it is safe, call 911. Only when it's safe, when you feel like you're in a position where you're not a threat to the shooter. Do not attempt to move wounded people. Now, this is according to Homeland Security. That bothers me as a medic, right? Because I spent my whole career moving wounded people. Tourniquets save lives. If somebody's shot in the arm or the leg, most people die from a gunshot, even on the battlefield. Most of our soldiers died because they didn't apply a proper tourniquet, and they were shot in the arm or their leg, and they could have lived if somebody would have known how to apply a tourniquet, or if that soldier himself would have had a tourniquet and could have put it on himself. I got like 9 tourniquets in my truck outside, and I keep one in my desk at work. I mean, I got tourniquets everywhere, and I got them in my kayak. I mean, you just can't have enough tourniquets, combat tourniquets. They're like $9, you know, and they save lives. All right, so you're evacuating. Now let's talk about hiding out, or barricading. Run, hide, fight. If evacuation is not possible, find a place to hide where the active shooter is less likely to find you. Where could that be? Closet, under your desk. If you stay in your office, what are some ways that you can lock your door? Barricade your door, okay? Put a desk in front of it. Put a bookshelf in front of it. Jam a chair up under it. Because the active shooter is on a mission, and he doesn't have time to try to unlock doors, right? Most of the time, if you watch videos, they're going down the hallway, they're trying every door, and every door that's locked, he goes on to the next one. He's just trying to find a human, and he can't find a human. He's not going to take the time to open a door. Now, if he knows you're in there, there's a chance he might try to coerce you to unlock the door, or open the door. If any of you saw the video from the shooting at the Colorado High School in February, I think it was, or January, the active shooter knew that there were students in this locked classroom, and he pretended to be the sheriff to try to get them to open the door. But he said something that a sheriff wouldn't say, and one of the kids said, "That's not the police." So they all busted the windows out, and they all jumped and ran. But the shooter couldn't get in because they had the door locked and they had all their desks and tables. But he was like, Hey, it's the sheriff, open up. Well, it was the shooter, and the kids picked up on the fact that it was the shooter. Okay, so smart kids, you could tell they had been trained or watched videos or whatever, you know. But your hiding place should be out of the active shooter's view. If you have a window, a big plate glass window into your office, it's not a good hiding place. If he can step up to the window and look around, bullets go through glass, right? So if he can see you behind your desk, he's looking through a window, he can shoot through the glass, okay? So try to get out of the view. Provide protection if shots are fired in your direction. Office door closed, get behind a desk. Filing cabinets are great, especially if they're full of files. It's hard for bullets to get through filing cabinets full of paper, books. Bookcases are good. All those things slow bullets down. Try not to restrict your options for movement. If you're barricaded, that means you've already made the decision not to run, so you are trapped. Okay, so to prevent an active shooter from entering into your hiding place, lock the door and blockade with heavy furniture, which we've already talked about. Now, if the active shooter is nearby, you got to become quiet as a church mouse. Okay. If he's on your hallway and you're barricaded in your office, do not give yourself away. And there's several things you can do. The worst thing you need to do is turn your cell phone off. Because if I'm an active shooter and I'm walking by an office and I hear a phone ring, then I'm thinking somebody's in there, because everybody runs with their phone, right? Everybody takes their phone with them. But if I hear a phone ringing, I'm coming after that phone. Lock the door, silence your cell phone. Turn off any source of noise, radios or televisions. Unplug them, because if he hears that playing, he's going to assume somebody's in there. You want to give the appearance that you weren't even at work that day. I did this drill a couple weeks ago down at Sozo Children in Birmingham for them, and we actually put their employees through a drill, and their staff vanished like nothing I've ever seen. There was 30 of them, and I'm the active shooter. I couldn't find a human being on the planet nowhere. I mean, they did great. All the offices, the lights were out. There was no noise. All the doors were locked, and they were hidden in there, but I couldn't tell it. So they got an A+. They did excellent. Hide behind large items like we talked about. If evacuation and hiding out are not possible, remain calm, dial 911. If you cannot speak because the active shooter's close, you can hear him outside your door in the hallway, just leave the line open and allow the dispatcher to listen. If you leave the line open, it's being recorded and she can hear what's going on, okay? They can ping your phone and they can tell where it's at in the building, okay? And then they can tell that to the approaching officers. Now, run, hide, fight. So your last option is to fight. Okay, and this is the most difficult one. And this is something I pray that nobody ever has to be in. None of you, but a lot of people get put in this situation. As a last resort only, when your life is in imminent danger, you have to make the decision to disrupt or incapacitate the shooter. Disrupt means throwing stuff at him, hitting him with stuff. But you know, we've all heard the term, "Don't bring a knife to a gunfight." Well, how about you're bringing a book or a chair or a fire extinguisher, but you got to do something. Don't just be a soft target, okay? You need to become the hardest target that you possibly can be. You make him work, or her, work to get to you, okay? And we'll talk a little bit in just a few minutes about soft and hard targets, because this is going to cover a whole nother category that's kind of a pet peeve of mine. But now, acting when you make the decision to act aggressively toward the active shooter, your mindset has to go to a place that it will not go on a daily basis. Your goal is to incapacitate, severely wound, or kill him. That should be your goal, okay? Because that could save other lives, not only yours, but who else is he going to go kill after he shoots you, right? So once you make that decision, you have to be as aggressive as you can be. Okay? I mean, be aggressive. Okay? Now, let's talk about things that you can have in your office. I always when I go do these drills, I go through people's office and I look and see what they have in there they can use for weapons, and sometimes they have nothing. But you need to have something in your office that you can use as a weapon. And that can be, if you go to the Foundry right now and go through all of our girls' offices, you're going to find baseball bats, golf clubs. Have something that looks aesthetic, or that you can stand behind the door that doesn't look like a weapon, but can be used as a weapon. Okay? Yes, sir. Pen. Oh, a pen? Yeah, pen. Mace, if it's allowed on your property, if it's allowed at your facility. Heavy rocks. I've seen some girls they got this big bowl and they have these rocks in them for decoration. Well, rocks are weapons, right? Okay. So be thinking about things you could put in there. Here's some other things you need to have in your office. You need to have a flashlight, because active shooters will kill the power, okay? And the building's going dark. You need a first aid kit with a tourniquet, okay, in your office. Because once the shooter's gone or incapacitated, you can render aid to those on your hallway or yourself, right? You can self-treat. Yelling, screaming, a whistle, anything that could, once you encounter the shooter, anything you could do to disrupt him, his mental state, whether you're hitting him with something or whether you're blasting him with an air horn, a canned air horn, or you're just trying to get his focus off, or get his mind off of killing you or wounding you. You got to get him distracted. And you got to commit. You got to commit to your actions. Now, let me stop right here and talk about soft, hard targets. So I'm going to show you right here the softest target in America. A young 15-year-old girl in her phone like this. That is the softest target. You got to have situational awareness. Sometimes just eye contact with somebody that's intending to snatch you or hurt you will deter them. They want the softest target they can get, and that's somebody that's totally unaware that they can just snatch and go or grab and go, right? So teach your daughters to get out of their phone and walk with their head up, looking around, checking their six, go in groups of 2, 4, 6, stop going alone. We had a discussion at our facility about girls leaving or ladies leaving at night by themselves. I want them going to their cars in at least 2, if not 3 or 4 or 5, So even in your daily life, going to and from work, make yourself a hard target, okay? Have some mace in your car, have a gun in your car, have a golf club, a baseball bat, and be looking around with a level of awareness that says, if you're going to take me, then you're going to have a fight on your hands, because they don't want to fight. They don't want to fight, okay? So that's the difference between a soft target and a hard target. Now, you've been in an active shooter situation. You've made the decision to run, hide, or fight. You're barricaded. There's a certain way you have to respond when law enforcement arrives. Their goal is to stop the active shooter as soon as possible, which means they will run over you. They will knock you down. It is not personal. It's just part of the job, okay? They hear gunfire and they know people are dying. You are just fixing to be a casualty of war when you get run over in the hallway, right? So it's okay, it happens. Officers usually are going to come in teams of 4 or more. Officers may be wearing regular patrol uniforms like you see every day, or they may have on a full tactical unit, a tactical kit, bulletproof vest, Kevlar helmet. They look like the Army. They're going to be armed with long rifles, shotguns, and handguns, because all 3 of those guns have a purpose inside the situation. They may use pepper spray or tear gas to control the situation. You, again, are going to suffer from that, but it's temporary, right? It burns, it hurts, your eyes are going to burn, the snot's going to be pouring, but that's just, everybody's got to live through it, right? The goal is to live. Remain calm, follow the officer's instructions, put down any items that you have in your hands, bags, jackets, hands out. Have your fingers spread. Keep your hands visible at all times, because sometimes we get you in a corridor, we can't get you to the front door because there might be two shooters or the possibility of a second shooter, so they may secure you somewhere. So while you're being secured, don't be digging around through your pockets and all that stuff. Keep your hands out, okay, while you're being held. And know that if you are being held, there's a reason. They have information or intel that you don't have. They're going to be shouting commands and pushing people to the ground, innocent people to the ground. Do not stop and ask an officer for help or direction when evacuating. He's not going to answer you, okay? Just go. Just proceed and follow all the people you see running, or where you know the exit is. Just get to the exit. Now, if you do get 911 on the phone, the switchboard's going to be lit up. I mean, their screen's going to be lit up because everybody on the scene is going to be calling. Well, if you get a dispatcher, there's information that can be very, very critical to stopping the shooter. Location of the active shooter. I'm at my address, my building. We got 2 hallways. The active shooter is on the south end of the building. Now, if you don't know that, this is what I recommend. This is what I've started doing for our facilities at the Foundry, and I did it for Sozo children. I went to Google Earth, and I took a picture of their buildings. And then I drew on the top of the building, printed it off, and drew on there north, south, east, and west, the address to the streets, and marked all the exits. So all the girls down there have a copy of that pinned on their bulletin board. So now they know exactly where they are in that building, and they know what exit is the closest, and they know how to tell the police on 911 where the shooter is in the building. He's on the south hallway near the rear exit, okay? So anything that you can do preemptively to help. So you're going to tell the 911 operator the location of the shooter, the number of shooters if there's more than one, physical description of the shooter if you've seen him or her, number and type of weapon held by it's important to know whether they got a handgun or they got a long gun, because that makes a difference to the TAC team coming in. They want to know what they're facing. Did he have explosives strapped to him? Okay. And you also need to let 911 know the number of potential victims at the location. Like I saw 5 people laying in the hallway when I was evacuating, and they're in the south hallway. We need medical attention in the south hallway. Now let's talk about how you train. Every ministry needs an emergency action plan, and your active shooter training needs to be part of that. And there's some things that you can do to help your employees understand the more you train, the better they're going to respond and the more lives that are going to be saved. Create an emergency action plan. Involve your stakeholders, your human resource department, your training department, facilities owner, operators. Even local law enforcement will come help you. If you call them and say, we would love for you to come help us develop an active shooter plan for our building, most are willing to come and help you do that. An effective emergency action plan includes a method for reporting fires and other emergencies. I know at our organization, we have a text alert system. We can send out a very quick text and all of our employees get it in the event of emergency. There's been a shooting at the Women's Center. They're going to get that by text. Avoid the area, okay? There's a tornado in Tuscaloosa, take cover. We use our texting system. You need an evacuation policy and procedure. We have this posted all through our facility. One of the first things I did when I got there 4 years ago is printed out evacuation procedures for fire and non-fire events and posted it all through the hallways. It's in all the bathrooms. You need a contact list for individuals that are responsible that need to be contacted on the EAP. Anybody and everybody that you think needs to be notified. You need to know information about your local hospitals. Like we're sending 5 employees from here injured. Where are they going to go? UAB West, UAB downtown. You need to know your local hospitals. That's part of your EAP. Now, let's talk about training. That's how you develop your EAP. Let's talk about the components of your training exercise and how to train for active shooter. You need to conduct mock active shooter drills on a regular basis. Occasionally, now part of your training, your staff needs to be able to recognize the sound of gunshots. Gunshots sound different in different buildings, okay? Now, the way I did that at the Foundry in the beginning was I used blanks, okay? Got a lot of police officer connections, and we would enter with AR-15s and shoot blanks, okay? But I want to say this. In our field of work, there's a lot of people with PTSD, okay? You need to be sensitive to those people, okay? Brandon helped teach me this when I first got there because in my mind, everybody needed to be in the drill. But I also have 2 Marines. My boys are 2 Marines, so I don't want to do anything to trigger a PTSD episode while training, okay? So we gave our program participants with PTSD the option to opt out of the active shooter drill before we come in with live gunfire, okay? And I think we had 5, 6, maybe 10 that took us up on that. So they got this class. Everybody else got to actually, run and barricade and hide. So since then, just for economic reasons and not scaring those with PTSD, we've started using canned air horns. And my staff has reported back to me that they are very unnerving. Would you agree, Dana? Canned air horns, hitting them intermittently, are very loud. They're very unnerving. They're very cheap. Get them at the auto parts store, $12, and that can be your shooter. That can be his gun, okay? And my staff has told me that they were scared to death, barricaded with that air horn outside their office door. And because, one, they knew I was a shooter and I was looking for them, but the noise disrupted them. But I would recommend at least once having your staff hear real gunfire in the building. And here's why. A lot of times, if you watch videos of gunfire in buildings and people go, oh, is there a fireworks show today? You don't think shooter. I do, but I'm not going to go fireworks. I'm going shooter first. But a lot of people say, is there a fireworks show today? Or what is that popping noise? Because a gun sounds real different 5 rooms down. Or if he started shooting in the lobby or the sanctuary of this church, people in here are going to go, what was that? It's just kind of, it's got 8 or 9 walls that have got it buffered. And so they need to know what gunshots sound like. Mainly because they don't go out there investigating to go see what that sound is, right? What was that? Let me go check, okay? One of the components of training is reacting quickly when gunshots are heard or when shooting is witnessed. Evacuate the area, hiding out, acting against the shooter, calling 911, reenacting when law enforcement arrives, and adopting the survival mindset in a time of crisis. That's all part of your training for this event. Additional ways to prepare for and prevent an active shooter situation. This is stuff you can do now. Preparedness. Ensure that your facility has at least 2 evacuation routes. Post your evacuation routes in conspicuous locations throughout your facility. Include local law enforcement and first responders in training. Encourage law enforcement, emergency responders, SWAT teams, K-9 teams, and bomb squads to train for an active shooter at your location. Invite them to come and train so that I worked for the city of Homewood. I knew Brookwood Hospital, Homewood High School, Sanford University like the back of my hand because we trained at those at those locations for active shooters. So I knew where they could possibly hide, where they could enter, and where they could exit. So they need to train at your, if you can get them to train at your facility would be huge for your local team of responders. How do you prevent an active shooter situation? Foster a respectful workplace, implement hostile working environment training. Our HR department at the Foundry, we teach harassment training, okay, every year, okay, whether it's sexual harassment or workplace harassment, because it's usually workplace harassment that leads to the guy that's going to get, or girl that's going to get ticked off, that's going to go to the car and get their gun, or they're going to get fired and they're going to go home and get their gun and come back, okay? We've all heard of those ex-employees, right? That come back and shoot the place up. All right, so you have your employees and your staff to worry about and deal with. And on top of what we do in this room, we're dealing with those that are struggling in life, right? That can be emotionally and mentally unstable. Like the guy I had yesterday who was dismissed, had the potential to come back, okay? And I knew that when he left. So, so foster a respectful workplace and train for harassment, and make sure that nobody in your workforce is being bullied or harassed. Now, there's some other things that are going to have to happen after an active shooter situation. You're going to need counseling, okay? Everybody on the scene, everybody involved is going to need to, whether you lose an employee or not, it's going to be such a traumatic event that somebody came into your place of business and tried to kill you, that everybody's going to need to see somebody, okay? Human resources needs to be involved. If you have an employee assistance program, they will need to be involved to provide counselors and counseling. And then there's got to be support for those that do get injured or do not make it. If you lose an employee to an active shooter, somebody's got to take care of the family, right? So these are all things that, this is going to set off a whole waterfall of things that's going to take you a long time to work through, right? Or to manage. Does everybody here conduct effective employee criminal background checks on the people you hire? Implement a process. Yeah.
I've never been an active shooter. That's my check background.
Criminal background checks could prevent you from hiring an active shooter.
Yes.
Okay? It could prevent you from hiring that person that is going to get ticked off and offended and go to their car and get their gun. Okay? Because you're going to see their past, right, and see what they've been, see what they've been involved in, right? Every background check has to come through my office if it has a red flag, and then that doesn't mean we don't hire them, but that means there's going to be a further conversation. We're going to go sit down and say, I need you to explain this red flag with me right here, you know. Why are you going to court next month on a domestic violence charge? You know, what happened? You know, and depending on their answer, depends on whether they're going to come to work or not, right? Because listen, we're struggling like everybody else to keep all of our employees, right? It's hard to find employees, so we're really, really trying hard. Okay. Once the incident is over, a manager, executive officer, somebody's got to do an accountability immediately. As soon as you get everybody outside and the police have called clear, somebody's got to go around and start look at the work roster and start accounting for who's here and who's not, who made it out, who didn't, and start making that plan. Do you have any staff that have special needs or disabilities? Are you working somebody within ADA compliance? They're going to they have just as much right to be able to get out in an active shooter situation. So is their office next to a door with a ramp where they can just get out if they need to. It's not going to do them any good to be on the second floor, 10 offices back, if they can't get to the door, if they can't get out, right? Because who's going to go get them, you know? Somebody's got to either make the decision to go get them and help them, or you got to have them somewhere where they can get out quickly, by the exit door, okay? Recognizing potential workplace violence. An active shooter in your workplace may be a current or former employee, an acquaintance of a current or former employee. Intuitive, key word, intuitive managers and coworkers may notice characteristics of potentially violent behavior in an employee. As soon as you do, you need to alert your human resources if you believe an employer or coworker exhibits potentially violent behavior. Now, go back to our first session at 11 o'clock and think about who you've been into it with. You know, who'd you have to de-escalate? Was it an employee, and why? So you need to follow up on that so they don't end up on this page right here, right? Indicators, there are indicators of potential violence by an employee. Employees typically do not just snap, but display a collection or indicators of potential violent behavior over time. If they're recognized, they can be managed, and you can get them help at EAP or with a counselor before they decide to harm somebody else in the workplace. These are some of your indicators of potential violence by your employees. Increased use of alcohol or illegal drugs. Unexplained increase in absenteeism. Vague physical complaints. Noticeable decrease in attention to appearance and hygiene. Okay, we see that in some of our users, right? Depression or withdrawal at work. Resistance and overreaction to changes in policies and procedures. They're just fed up. They're done. They're still working, but mentally they're not there. Okay? Increased severe mood swings. Unstable emotional responses. I had a female working in our office one time, and I noticed her car was parked crooked in the parking lot. We're tight on spaces anyway, and she was taking up 2. And I just went in there and I said, hey, would you mind moving your car over and putting it in one spot so somebody else could? And she just started screaming at me. And when she started screaming at me, I could smell the alcohol on her breath. And then I noticed she was in her pajamas. And I'm like, we got a lot going on here, you know? There's a lot going on. She no longer works with us, okay? She no longer works with us. Suicidal comments about putting things in order. I'm fixing to make things right around here. I'm fixing to put things in order. Those kind of comments, huge key. Behavior which is suspect of paranoia. Everybody's against me. The whole everybody's against me, it's me against the world type personality. Another potential. Escalation of domestic problems into the workplace. The talk of domestic violence or fighting with your wife or your kids or financial trouble. Financial trouble has led to a lot of workplace violence. Okay? Talk of previous incidents of violence. Empathy with individuals committing violence. I saw a guy in my fire service career get called in the chief's office for that very reason. Every suicide bomber, every mass shooter, he would empathize with. And finally we saw a pattern, you know? And so that's worth having a conversation over. Why are they your heroes, you know? Because we all know that there are certain times when there's copycats, right? Somebody does it first, and then somebody who's been thinking about it, that shooting incident gives this one the courage to go and do it. So, increase in unsolicited comments about firearms, other dangerous weapons, or violent crimes. I'm storing up a stockpile of ammonium nitrate at my house. Hope you're gardening a lot, because if not, have situational awareness and just train. Put your emergency action plan in place and train your employees not to be a victim of an active shooter incident, or how to survive. How can you survive an active shooter incident? We train once a month, and that's not a full-on scale training. I will occasionally pick out a certain location and do a full-on scale training. But our dorm supervisors know how to monthly train. I created a form for tornado, fire, and active shooter, and I think they just get a pot with a big metal spoon and they go through the hallway, banging it. They tell them there's going to be an active shooter drill, and then they time how long it takes. I get a form that shows how many people evacuated and how long it took them to get out of the building. And I look at the time, and if I think it's too long, it should be around 2 to 3 minutes. If it's longer than that, then I call and we have a discussion on what happened. How many barricaded, how many escaped. It's a reality that we live with in today's society, and it's not going away, okay? The numbers, if you look at the numbers, active shooter numbers have risen since ever since the first one, right? But especially since the 90s. They're on the increase every year. Any questions about active shooter response? Yes, Bryce?
Is there evidence that we point to that many or most active shooters, that they go into this thing not expecting to surrender, but to die either by their own hand or hand of police?
That's correct.
Is that escalated to a new point, to a new level as far as first response?
As far as first responders,
Yeah, if they can tell that, hey, this guy, is there a way to profile almost instantly, this guy's someone we can talk down, but this one ain't gonna be taken?
I don't know that. I don't know that answer. I don't know if there's a way to, when somebody gets to that level of violence, I don't know if there's a way to evaluate that. But what we do know is most active shooters know they're not coming out alive. That's the trend. They either want death by suicide by police, okay, after they take as many as they can, or they take their own lives before they're captured. That's usually the end result.
Just last week, it wasn't exactly like a mass shooting, but most of the country kind of got enamored with the Casey White, Hickey White thing.
That's right.
And, it was, I don't know if he chickened out or what happened, but they have established that his plan was to shoot out with police.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I saw that yesterday, based on the amount of weaponry and ammunition he had. Yeah, and I think they had even been, they had both been overheard talking about a Bonnie and Clyde situation, that they were both going to die in a big shootout. But the U.S. Marshals saw differently, so put an end to it quickly. So, any other questions on active shooter, or how to train, or how to develop a plan?
I have one. You said run, hide, fight.
Yes.
And I don't know if it's the nature of what we do, or I'm just a little slow. But I also have the instinct to help. So say we work at the Love Lady Center. So
Yeah.
Florida building, 4 to 5 floors, depending on what you measure. 400 women is going to help others get out, getting in the way, or, because that's my instinct.
Is to help others get out?
Yes.
Yeah, you absolutely can help them get out,
Right.
as long as you're confident that you're not going to encounter the shooter. Are you coming down stairwells?
Of course.
Yeah, all right, that's a risk, okay?
Hordes of women living in rooms that
That's right. Our girls in our 4-story choose to barricade, and to barricade very well, because in a building with staircases, you're almost, with hallways and staircases,
we have 8 staircases.
yeah, you're going to, yeah, well, that helps you, okay? But it's going to, if you got a 1 out of 8 chance of choosing the right stairwell, so that the shooter's not in, right?
Right.
So,
We also have small children that can't.
right,
quiet. It's very
can't be
big.
quiet.
We have a lot of
Hallways, long hallways are called fatal funnels for a reason, okay? You don't want to be out in the hallway when you don't know where the shooter's at, because,
stairways that break up our hallway.
okay, good, yeah, so you could bail out of a hallway into a stairwell.
Right.
Yes. Traditionally, you want to stay out of stairwells. If you don't know where the shooter is, don't get in the stairwell. If you can hear the gunfire going on in the other end of the building, go the other way and take the stairwell. Yeah, I see no problem in that. That's a personal choice of whether to help them get out.
Okay, so it's not a stupid choice.
Huh? Yeah, no, it's something to think about on the front end.
Well, I think in nature of what a lot of us do, that's
Yeah,
our instinct.
yeah, that's right. Our girls do a fantastic job of, when I enter that building as a shooter, they barricade very well. They put every piece of furniture we got in front of their door, and I cannot get it open. They're very resourceful, and they're quiet. They're very quiet. I can't hear them. I mean, I get silent. I'm sneaking through there because I don't want them to know where I'm at.
Right.
And but they get so quiet I can't find them, and that's what you want. But now we only have. The difference is we have one staircase coming down from 4 stories. Yeah. So that's the difference. 8 stairwells helps you. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
So do most police departments have blanks that they can come out and use so that you can hear what they
Yes, they do. Yes. Yes, their training division.
Help you, because I mean, I do think about that kind of stuff because it is so prevalent now. And I have thought about that because, we have women that have ex-husbands and that come from domestic violence situations.
That's right.
And, some of them don't want the men to know where they are and what happens if they find out. And that does cross my mind quite often. So I've thought about what happens if one of those men find them and come up there and hurt one or many of us, So I have thought about that kind of thing and what we would do if that happened.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, you're thinking in the right way. Yes, most police departments have a training division. That training division will have someone who can help you. Okay, now that depends on how small your department is or how large it is. If you can't find somebody to help you, let me know. Okay, we'll make some contact. We'll make some phone calls. We will find somebody that can help you carry out that drill. Because yes, you need to do that.
You were talking about how you had forms for fire drills, all your safety drills. Is there any resources for sample forms, everything that we could go to use as a structure to base ours off of?
There is. I mean, you can just go type in drill forms. But y'all, it's so simple. It's like a first grader drew it. I mean, you can make your own. Well, I just put the title of our organization above it. Fire, tornado, active shooter. The time, how many got out, how many didn't. I mean, it's like 4. Like you would laugh at it if you saw it, but it's documentation, right? It's very simple, just to keep it simple. But there are forms out there that you can model after if you want something more elaborate or more in detail. I just want documentation we're doing and the time we're getting out. Yes, Leah?
What would you say about elevators?
Elevators, no. Elevators are a no-no. And let me tell you why. Because as soon as you get on there, they're going to kill the power, right? And if it doesn't have emergency backup power or emergency generator, now you're trapped in the elevator, okay? But now you're talking to somebody who don't like elevators even on a regular basis. But no, use stairwells. Yeah, avoid the elevators. And that goes for, avoid the elevators, that goes for active shooter, tornado, or fire. Yeah. Go where you can run or jump if you have to, okay? Because it would be my luck, I get on an elevator and the door closed and it's going to lose power. And then you got to try to find a way out. But yes, good question. Any other questions? What about personal? You've been thinking about things you can use in your office, personal things you can have that you can defend yourself with? Okay. Now, does everybody here have a no firearms policy at work? Or you don't have a policy? Okay. Let's talk about firearm policy at work. Most organizations are not going to tell you can have a firearm because of liability, right? Your insurance carrier doesn't want everybody in the building carrying a firearm. And there are certain people in your organization you don't want to carry a firearm. They are a bigger risk with a firearm. That, okay? Yes, so that's why there's several reasons. not only do you have an irresponsible staff member with a firearm who could accidentally shoot themselves or one of your program participants, but if they're not responsible enough to keep up with their weapon, and then a program participant gets it, and he's had a bad day, you know, and it shows up in one of my counselors' counseling sessions, he's not going to be very happy, you know. So yeah, so it's, we have at the Foundry, we have a no firearm policy. But I do know that we have several staff members that are concealed licensed carriers, and they train on a regular basis, and they keep those in their car, okay? I told them, if it's outside your car, I don't want to know nothing about it. But I better not ever see it or hear it, right? But our official stance is no firearms. But I'm also pro-gun and pro-firearms, so you have rights, correct? Without getting into politics, you do have rights. So, and I think Alabama, starting next year in 2023, thanks to Kay Ivey, you don't even have to have, is it next year, John, 2023? Yeah. Already started? Yeah, you don't have to have a permit. You don't. It goes in effect in January. Yeah, you don't. It goes effect in January. You don't have to have a concealed permit, right? But that doesn't supersede your company's no firearm policy, right? That's just, you have a right to have that in your vehicle. All right, any other questions on? Gonna be able to make a plan? Okay, good. Yeah, put together a plan, and contact me if you need help. But yes, reach out to your local law enforcement. Say, can you bring some blanks down here and let us hear gunfire in the building? We want to train. All right, thank y'all so much. Great questions, good stuff.